from brave souls to midnight whispers, traverse this realm at your own peril. For within these tales lurk horrors most foul. Tonight's tale may twist the very fabric of your sanity. And a word to the wise, this narrative paints pictures of terror not meant for every eye or ear. Venture ahead if you dare, but remember, you have been warned.
The relentless Arizona sun scorched the sands, its blistering gaze unforgiving as it heralded the dawn of another sweltering day. Our team, a small cadre of researchers from various disciplines, had converged with a singular purpose: to peel back the layers of the desert's ecological mysteries. The university had funded us, lured by the promise of unlocking climate secrets hidden within the arid expanse. My heart raced with anticipation as I stepped off the beaten path, my boots sinking slightly into the warm, fine sand. Our guide, Tomas, was a man of the desert, a walking chronicle of its harsh beauty and hidden perils. He was a last-minute addition, a nod to local expertise and the insistence of our cautious project lead, who feared the untamed sprawl of this particular valley. "It's not on any map for a reason," he'd said, his eyes scanning the assembled group, his message clear. This place did not welcome strangers lightly. Tomas greeted us not with handshakes but with solemn nods, his deep-set eyes glinting with a knowledge that spoke of generations rooted in these lands. As we shouldered our packs, ready to venture into the valley that lay like a slumbering beast beneath the rising sun, he recounted tales whispered by his ancestors. Stories of shifting sands that could swallow dreams, of spirits roaming under moonlit skies, their desires as cryptic as the petroglyphs etched in the hidden canyons. "The spirits here, they are alive," Tomas warned us, his voice carrying the weight of unshakable belief. He spoke of a reverence for the land, a pact his people upheld by giving the valley a wide berth. "My people, we do not venture into this valley. It is not a place for the living." His eyes, dark and fathomless, held each of ours in turn, ensuring his message was felt deep within our bones. He agreed to walk with us for a day, to the edge of where the wild land grew even wilder, and then he would leave us to our devices. "7 days, he said. "I will come back for you then." His parting words were a cryptic warning, reminding us that our presence was a ripple in the still waters of this ancient place, an intrusion that might not be forgiven by those who watched from the unseen thresholds. We watched him leave, his silhouette growing smaller against the vast canvas of the desert. As he disappeared over a distant dune, a sense of isolation settled over us, a stark realization that we were now alone in a land that did not belong to us, a land that Thomas and his people respected, feared, and ultimately left undisturbed. The first few nights passed without incident, the desert seemingly indifferent to our intrusion. We set up our sophisticated campsite with all the arrogance of modernity, placing our trust in technology to shield us from the ancient forces Thomas had alluded to. Solar panels glistened next to high-tech tents, and satellite phones linked us to the outside world. It was a bubble of the 21st century sitting incongruously on a land that time had seemingly forgotten. The day's heat was relentless, pressing down on us with an almost physical weight, but it was the nights that proved truly unnerving. The desert's chill was a stark contrast to the day's blaze, and it whispered of things unseen that moved with the shadows. Our equipment began to malfunction. Our GPS signals scrambled as if the very earth was rebuffing our attempts to chart its secrets. We told ourselves it was the magnetic minerals in the rocks or some such scientific explanation. When our tools started to go missing, expensive, state-of-the-art instruments that we had secured meticulously, the unease among us grew palpable. We found our tents with their seams split open not by any blade we could identify, and our samples, carefully collected during the day, were scattered and ruined. It felt personal, as if the desert itself was rejecting our presence, rebelling against our measurements and our data. Our laughter around the campfire, once full of scientific bravado, began to wane. We joked about coyotes with a taste for high-tech gear, but our smiles were tight, our glances over our shoulders into the darkness frequent. The desert stillness seemed to be listening, its silence not empty but full of a heavy expectancy. It was on the 4th night when the scream shattered our scientific detachment, a blood-curdling sound that seemed to be both human and something else, something far more ancient. We found Jim just outside the ring of light cast by our campfire, his body still warm, his face frozen in an expression of terror that suggested he had glimpsed something that defied understanding, defied the very laws of nature we were there to study. We gathered around Jim's body in a tight circle, our modern, rational minds struggling to make sense of his death. There was no blood, no sign of an animal attack, no footprints in the sand. It was as if the life had been drawn straight out of him, leaving behind a shell shocked by whatever it had encountered. The satellite phone was of no help, only offering us a static-filled connection to the outside world that might as well have been a million miles away. We were truly isolated, with a dead colleague and a creeping dread that what had taken Jim was not finished with us yet. Panic settled over our camp like a thick fog, its grip cold and unyielding. I remember lying awake in my tent, straining my ears for any sound that would betray the presence of something. Ellie, our biologist, had taken it upon herself to document the local flora, hoping to find clues about the land's resilience. But after Jim's inexplicable death, her enthusiasm had given way to an obsession with the valley's predatory nature. The day after we found Jim, Ellie approached me, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. "The desert is alive," she whispered, echoing Thomas's words. She told me how she felt watched by the barren hills, how the whispering winds seemed to carry voices, taunting, warning. I wanted to dismiss it as shock, grief manifesting as paranoia, but her next words chilled me to the bone. "I hear them at night," she said, her voice trembling. "The spirits Thomas warned us about. They're not just stories." She spent that day and the next in a frenetic state, collecting samples with a fervor that seemed to be about more than scientific discovery. It was as if she was searching for proof of something unseen, something she believed was orchestrating our demise. Her disappearance came on the heels of a night filled with murmurs that seemed to slither in from the dark corners of the desert. I lay in my tent, sleep an impossible wish, listening to the sounds that defied explanation. Soft thuds like footsteps, and a low, incessant chanting that seemed neither human nor animal. By morning, Ellie's tent was empty, her equipment strewn about, papers scattered as if caught in a sudden gale that had affected nothing else around it. The rest of us clustered together, a herd mentality taking over. Sarah, our geophysicist, began to mutter about ancient curses and the folly of our endeavor. The data we had so meticulously gathered now lay forgotten, trivial in the face of the unseen hunter that stalked us. Each gust of wind, every shift of sand felt like a silent footstep, a prelude to the next harrowing scream that would signal another one of us had been taken. Our scientific resolve had crumbled, replaced by a primal urge to survive. But in this expansive wilderness, where could we turn? The desolation that had once been our research paradise now loomed over us as a vast, open prison. We were trapped in a story that was unfolding with a narrative we couldn't control, each of us possibly the next character to be abruptly and inexplicably removed. With each sunset that bled into the sands, a palpable dread settled deeper into my bones. We had become specters haunting our own camp, jumping at the softest rustle, the slightest breeze. The desert had turned from a place of research to a haunting ground, and the line between science and survival had been irreversibly blurred. Sarah had taken to scanning the horizon as if she could discern our fate in its undulating waves. She spoke less of rock formations and more of the foreboding that each rock seemed to cast. "We are not welcome here," she would murmur under her breath, her scientific mind struggling to rationalize the irrational. The days stretched on with the cruelty of an ancient curse. Our conversations dwindled, becoming staccato exchanges of necessity rather than camaraderie. We rationed our water with avaricious care, not knowing when Thomas would, or even could, return. The desert had stripped us of our pretensions, our belief that knowledge and technology could tame any frontier. Our equipment lay about, useless and abandoned, a testament to our naivety. The solar panels, once our lifeline, now did little more than reflect the mocking glare of the sun. The satellite phone was silent, offering no comfort, no connection, no rescue. We were castaways in a sea of sand, the desert a merciless tide pulling us further from the world we knew. I found myself keeping vigil each night, too afraid to sleep, too tired to keep watch. It was during one of these hazy vigils that Sarah disappeared. In the dim light of the early dawn, I found her tent flung open, her belongings in disarray as if she had been torn from the tent by an unseen force. I stood at the edge of her emptiness, the wind whispering through the fabric of her tent. And for a moment I thought I could hear her voice, a soft plea carried away with the dust. What remained of our group clung to sanity by a threadbare hope that Thomas would indeed return. I didn't dare voice the fear that he knew more than he let on, that his 7-day promise was not just a measure of time, but a countdown to some inevitable end that he was powerless to alter. The desert had become our purgatory, a place of waiting, of penance for sins we did not know we had committed. It was clear to me now that we were not just battling the elements, we were at the mercy of the desert's ancient waking heart. I write these words alone, my hand unsteady, the ink a stark contrast to the pale canvas of my journal. I have become the last witness to the inexplicable unraveling of our group. Time has lost its meaning, the days blurring into a continuous loop of dread and desolation. I can't recall how long it's been. The sun rises and sets with the same indifferent cruelty, and the remaining shadows of my colleagues stretch out in my memory, distorted and elongated by fear. At times I sense movement on the periphery of my vision, figures that stand atop the dunes silhouetted against the merciless sky watching me. I raise my gaze to meet theirs, searching for some hint of humanity, some glimmer of understanding, but they are too far, too obscured by the heat's shimmer. When I blink, they vanish, their presence dismissed by my rational mind as a mirage, a trick of isolation and terror. Yet as the days drag on, these visions become my constant companions. I see them more clearly now, figures that are both there and not there, apparitions that seem to flicker with the heat waves. They watch me with an intensity that feels almost palpable, their stillness more menacing than any predatory beast's charge. Sometimes I think I recognize them, the outlines of my lost companions, maybe the ancestral spirits that Thomas spoke of, come to claim me as well. My scientific reasoning has eroded away, leaving behind the primal core of human instinct. I am not alone, not truly. The desert is alive with the souls of those who have perished, who have become one with its dust and desolation. Jot down these experiences, these observations, not in the name of research, but as a testament, should this journal outlast my physical being. The irony does not escape me. I, who have dedicated my life to the pursuit of knowledge, now cling to the hope that ignorance might have been bliss. The haunting has become my reality, a relentless pursuit by things I cannot fully see, understand, or escape. The sun scorches, the cold bites, but it is the unseen eyes upon me that have stripped away the remnants of my resolve. I am waiting now not for rescue, not for Thomas, but for the desert to decide my fate, as it did for the others before me.
And so, another tale from the depths of night concludes. But remember, dear listeners, in the realm of midnight whispers, the echoes of our stories never truly fade. If tonight's tale left you hungering for more, explore our anthology of horrors. For those brave enough, delve into our previous stories and discover what lurks in the shadows. Before you venture back into the safety of daylight, remember to like this video if it sent shivers down your spine. Subscribe and ring the bell, so the whispers of the midnight hour always find their way to you. And should you dare, leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. We revel in knowing which parts of our tales resonate with your darkest curiosities. Until next time, keep listening to the whispers, for they have